All right, we picked this up at the auction yesterday. I've wanted one of these for a while. I've got a regular full-size skid steer. I've owned for 25 years. I bought it brand new. And the only reason I'm bothering to tell you that is because it's only got like 250 hours on it after 25 years. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to use this thing a whole lot. So I thought, well, why not take a chance on one of these Chinese jobs? So I'm going to give you our first impressions on it. We got it going, and we found some flaws right off. The first thing we did was we checked the oil on it and see what the oil was like, the hydraulic oil, the engine oil, and the gas, and everything in it. Actually, I've heard these horror stories about the fluids, but they all look good, they all look clean. So we're going to run them for a couple hours before we change them out and see what happens. But in the meantime, we thought we'd go over the thing with a grease gun. Well, that was the biggest flaw that we found in the thing. There was a bunch of grease fittings that we had to change because the grease gun just wouldn't even go on them. They were defective, actually. I don't know how they managed to get some grease in them, but they did have a little bit of grease and stuff, but we added more. So it's ready to run. The other thing I wanted to show you was this engine here is the same as a Predator engine. It's a Rado engine is the brand, and you can get parts for them. They're basically a Honda clone. It's about I think it's a 22 horsepower engine. The other thing I wanted to show you is this thing has an oil cooler on the engine. It has a filter on the engine. But the main thing I wanted was, I always hated when I seen these videos and you couldn't see what it was like inside. This is the hydraulic cooler, and it's set up to run just like it is. The battery is right there. The hydraulic oil tank is over here. We intend to put a filter in the system later on, and in the return line of the system, like you see a lot of guys do. But other than that, I think it's pretty well made and pretty easy to get to the stuff on it. I have no complaints with it other than that. That was the only things we found wrong with it. So it runs good, and that's all we got to say about this one. We'll show you the other machine we bought in a minute. All right, we picked this one up at the auction yesterday too. It was not quite as friendly to us as the other one was. Again, one of the first things we did was come on over here. We tried to check the oil, and I deliberately bought this machine with this nice hatch here so that I could get to it. You cannot get your arm down in there to get to the oil on this engine. It's just almost impossible. So for our first thing we did a modification. We drilled a 4-inch hole here with a hole saw. Now you can reach your arm in there. We lined it with some of this stuff here that we bought at the auto parts store. Now you can get your arm in there to check the oil. Why would you not want to check the oil on your machine? Okay, so that was our first modification there. But we also found pretty quick on that this one didn't like to start because the choke didn't work. And the reason the choke didn't work was because the cable that came with it, which is right here, was put on there. This doesn't even fit because it had to go up against this frame here, and it wouldn't even fit in there right. And so it wasn't opening and closing the choke all the way. And they had it on here with some kind of weird thing like I ain't never seen a choke cable in my life. So a trip up to the lawnmower store got me a little 3-foot choke cable here and a little barrel thing that we put on top of the, you probably see it better from the top up there, that we put on there to be able to hook up the cable. I don't know if you can see that or not. That's good. Okay, and so that solved that problem. The next problem we found on this machine was that we tried to, and this again has the Rato engine, which is a Harbor Freight type engine, a Predator engine basically. It's a Honda clone. You can get most of the parts from a Honda will fit on it, or a Predator. The other problem we found when we went to grease it again was this grease fitting down here was put in there with RTV sealant because they never bothered to put any threads in, and it looked real good when it left the factory with a grease fitting in it. So we had to take it out, and it blew out, of course, when we went to grease it. So tapped it, put the fitting in after we tapped it with a metric tap, and off we go. Otherwise, overall, we're really pleased with the way the machine runs. It had a little bit of overspray from some idiot at the auction with a spray can, touching it up here and there. But otherwise, we're pretty happy with both machines. Again, we don't think we'll use it a lot, but it sure beats digging with a shovel. So that's all we got to say about them. Just want to conclude with a few thoughts on this whole process. If you're going to buy one of these in an auction, I wouldn't if you can't fix it yourself or you can't find a dealer. I can't tell you where there's a dealer for these right now. I'm sure there's going to be some that'll shake out as things go on here. But right now, if you can't fix it or you ain't got a really good friend that says he can fix it for you, I wouldn't even buy one from an auction. Number two, if you're going to have these small engines, we know this because we work on a lot of small engines and different stuff. Do not put fuel in them with ethanol if they're going to sit for any time. A carbureted engine is going to give you trouble. Go buy yourself some boat gas. Usually you can buy boat gas that doesn't have any alcohol in it, or you can buy aviation gas for them old airplanes they made back in the 50s and 60s. They need that unleaded gas, but they use leaded gas, I should say, but with no alcohol in it, because they don't want no trouble flying them things over your head. So use aviation gas or boat gas in it, and you won't have hardly any problem.